Yeah, welcome back at the ASQF NetWeek, 4th edition we have today. And also during this week we have several sessions. And I'd like to welcome Clemens Reijnen from Sogeti, Netherlands. And he will have a speak about from audit-based to continuous validation and other practices cloud teams adopt. If you have any questions during this session, please use the question function, and I will give the questions to Clemens, and he will answer this. And we can also have it after the presentation of him. Thanks today for the sponsor, Quentinel. This is our today's sponsor. And yeah, I like to hand over to Clemens and enjoy the presentation.
Cool, thank you. And so I will share my screen. And there I am. Let me put me in the picture there. So welcome. My name is Clemens Reijnen. I'm from Sogeti. I'm the global CTO of Cloud and DevOps leader. And I will dive into the details around practices I see cloud teams are adopting to bring quality at the speed. And that's why I like it to mention it from audit-based to continuous, because that's what's still happening a lot, that we are monitoring the checklists, but it would be very nice when you can do that continuously and not only having it in the release pipeline. So quickly, a small description. What is the setting where we are talking about? And the setting is about that our enterprises where we are working for, their customers, but also their employees, they expect that they are using all kinds of digital channels. They are expecting a fast interaction with them. And that also reflects back on how we as teams, as development teams need to interact. We need to learn much more different technologies. We need to ship faster. The quality should be at a very high level, and everything should be as the customer and the employees are expecting. And that's also where you are mapping that, for example, at the landscape. And I'm taking a Microsoft landscape over here, but you can put it on any landscape there. So when you are looking at different kinds of business capabilities, you have internal focus and external focus. Internal, I was saying that with the employee engagements, but also with customer intimacy, how they are using that. So a business capabilities, they are exposed to those internal and external resources via different digital channels. And that's where I'm seeing the digital transformation of many organizations are moving towards to. All kinds of different technologies, those organizations are starting to use all kinds of different channels to interact with either their customers or their employees. And just look at how you are interacting with the businesses you are doing business with, or your own organization, the enterprise where you are working on. You can select multiple of those channels which you are using there. To enable those channels to be meaningful, you see a lot of work going on around the cloud platform. The cloud is exposing actually the internal systems throughout either APIs or API platforms and new cloud native capabilities towards those digital channels. And they are leveraging, for example, enterprise solutions like O365 to speed up the development, or already get some gained functionality in CRM systems like Dynamics, or even making an easier self-servicing capabilities for businesses with the Power Platform. And all these components are integrated. All those components are communicating together. And also more and more organizations are looking into their data sets and leveraging AI to fuel those digital channels. And this is more or less the landscape I'm always talking about when I'm discussing what is the challenge of enterprises nowadays. And those challenges are, and I already mentioned several of them, the engagements, they want to interact with internal and external, that's why they want to have those digital channels in place. But from an enterprise focus, all these components, all these settings should be compliant, should be of the same quality level, should be consistent, because you want to maintain it, and then when there's no consistency, it will be a maintenance hell. So that's definitely an enterprise challenge around this. And there's also some technical challenges like, how do I put this in place? And there are so many factors, so many parameters I need to turn around to make it either scalable or make it resilient for my business. How do I put this in place? And that's the discussion what we have with organizations. And that discussion and how organizations are solving those challenges, we started to write down in a report what we have written together with Microsoft, and it's the Enterprise DevOps report. And in an Enterprise DevOps report, we conducted a survey around many organizations, and you can see definitely the outcome of the biggest challenges organizations have when they are moving to such a digital transformation, and they want to solve challenges like the consistency, the compliancy of all our systems in there. And those challenges, product management, how do you let those teams focus on product? How do you engage the team members when they all work remotely? How do you handle that all those systems have the same level of quality? How do you take care everybody works the same way? What is the security part? And then also from a regulator compliancy perspective, how can we prove we are compliant? And those are the challenges we started to collect in this report. And we started to write about the practices, the tips organizations are adopting when they are going to be successful as an enterprise. But just before diving into a little bit of these more details, I always want to introduce the term enterprise DevOps because we are not talking about one application. We are not talking about one release pipeline which goes to production. That those are more or less the new digital natives which are having that startup mindset and evolve their whole application architecture with their DevOps practices. I'm more looking at enterprises which have those challenges with decades of legacy, decades of technical debt, as we normally call it, not only around the tools, the practices, but also around processes, and they are moving. They are adopting DevOps, but more in a transformational way. And that is what they are looking into, because enterprise DevOps can solve challenges for organizations when they want to move to a more digital organization and want to transform and have that customer intimacy and in this new way of working. For example, when I look at the report, and I just picked quality out of it, and because we are discussing quality today, I see, and that's also a lot of discussion we have with our teams. What are your challenges when you are working for a large organization and need to adopt a good way of working around quality? And then definitely that's always the discussion you start with, speed and quality. We need to deliver fast, but quality is not as a second thought there. And then we are starting to lack the quality perspective there. Definitely lack of test automations is always a big challenge. And also over here, consistency. When you have hundreds of applications, how do I validate all those systems the same way? how do I take care the quality is all at the same level. And that's also when you have all that landscape you just saw, there are a lot of arrows crossing around, there's a lot of interdependencies, and how do I take care organizations are solving them. And I extracted just a few of the practices, what teams are doing to start learning from that, which I've adopted a good way of working and which are kind of successful in putting secure quality into all those systems, and then in the enterprise DevOps way of working. And what you see over here, doing the right thing should be the easy thing, and I always love to say that. It should be very easy to put quality in immediately. And you can do that on several ways, and I will show you several of those ways, how it can be made very easy for teams to do it the right way. Because there are many ways how you can do it wrong, but when you are supporting teams in such a way, it can be done quite easily to do it the right way. What I also see, and having discussions with teams around those kinds of challenges, what is one of the biggest challenges actually is often that they don't know what the quality should be of the product they are working on. So having clear quality goals and transparency, that everybody understands what is our quality policy, what is our quality strategy, definitely is a practice an enterprise should embrace. Just simply start asking to your teams, what should be the quality level? To what kind of quality level are you validating the system? And then you often see that they actually don't know and don't have a clear understanding of it. And bringing those goals, bringing those transparency to the teams is also a practice I see many teams are successful in adopting there, and then they are gaining more benefits from it. The other one, understand how your supply chain works. That's more around the complex interdependencies. A software system is not on its own. And definitely when you are coming from an enterprise, when you have legacy systems, for example, there's a lot of connections, a lot of systems who are using other systems. And now, for example, with open source, when you're looking at the dependency tree, it's a GitHub capability from, for example, any open source JavaScript package. You will be scared how many hundreds of dependencies such one package already has. And then your developers are going to use that package in your application. And how do you know that whole dependency tree is of the right security level? And that's what you need to start understanding. And that's where platforms can start helping. And that's also where I see a lot of organizations having successes. They are starting to leverage the full platform capabilities. And that's where definitely cloud plays a big role, because the cloud platform has many more and many different capabilities as your on-prem systems. For example, in on-prem, the capabilities of a platform were normally networking, that took care of the security, some compute and some storage. That were the capabilities of your on-prem system. But now when you are starting to look into the cloud, quality, measuring, scalability, all kinds of abilities are already capabilities of that platform, which you can start leveraging. And organizations, DevOps teams who are using the platform to the max and really understand the capabilities and the power of those platforms, they are much more successful actually in implementing the right quality for the organization. And still, I was surprised when I had the discussion with those teams. Test automation is still a very, very big challenge. And some teams are getting more smart about it. They really are looking into and learning about how their test automation behaves, and starting to implement those test automation scripts in a very smart way. And that's also where you are seeing a lot of AI capabilities are coming in, which are helping teams to start putting that test automation at the right level of the organization. And actually the right level is what is the quality goal of it? How I can test automate my whole system to the max, but is that compared to the quality goals of the organization? So when you are looking at all the challenges, we saw the 6 challenges, and we are looking at what I just described as the lessons learned from one of those challenges. You can group them more or less together, and then you get some very cool practices actually. And those practices, I will touch them one by one because we can learn a lot from it. First, around product teams. You see, with DevOps, we already broke down or combined the 2 silos of Dev and Ops. Now businesses also can start and become more interesting. So you get Biz DevOps, and then security comes in. You get DevSecOps, but it's all about actually making one team responsible for a full product of the system. And that's a really interesting discussion because when they are full responsible of one of those systems, they also feel full responsibility of that system, and they can start experimenting more. They can start become innovative anymore. They can even measure the success of their product because they are very close to the customer, and that will bring a lot of engagement there. Also, the other one, shared and self-servicing platforms. This is really in the context that make the right thing the easy thing to do. And when you are providing and giving teams the capability to create environments themselves, create those environments themselves based on the compliance and security and quality rules we have set in place already. For example, when they want to have certain compute power, they can start requesting that from the self-servicing platform, and that compute power is put in place with the right compliance, security, and quality. It's a very simple example, and I will have some more examples of those. I already mentioned share and transparency, and that's also with the third one, embracing inner source mentality. And inner source is the same as our industry is doing actually on GitHub. And I think we are really unique as an industry that we are doing it like this, as that we are contributing to each other's code and reusing each other's code without any request for money there. And there is some licensing in place, but that's also what brought our industry to the level where we are right now. We are really innovative. Our code quality goes up quite well, and that's also what organizations are starting to use. And they're starting to use open source way of working internally. And for example, the quality policies, the quality strategy I mentioned, that can be put in an inner source model into the organization. So actually everybody can start changing those policies via a normal code request, code change request workflow. But when you can influence how certain policies, how strategies, but also how scripts, how automation is put in place, you also feel that you are part of it, and that it is not dictated to you, but that you are a member of it, and then you are embracing it definitely much more. And embracing that inner source way of working, that with shared and shared ownership and all those kinds of shared responsibility and that kind of stuff in place, that also drives the cultural part. The culture around quality, culture around security, always hard to implement tactics, but this is definitely a pattern where organizations are quite successful with. Quickly on the last 4, standardization and reference architecture with reusable code templates. What I mentioned, Standardization should be always in place. When you're looking at the last, the one above the last one, leveraging automation wherever possible. When you want to put automation in place, you need to have a kind of standardization. Otherwise, you can't automate. Because automation is automating repetitive tasks. And you only can do repetitive tasks automation when you have a standardized way of working. And having a reference architecture, this is how we're doing it, really helps there. And what I see here is what cloud teams are using, because in the cloud, you can create infrastructures, you can create everything quite quickly. And that's the mantra of everything as code. And that's where you see teams having a lot of success there. So automation, I already mentioned it. You don't want to do as a team repetitive tasks. And that's why you want to have as much as automation in place as possible. And mainly on when running production workloads. Running production workloads should be actually without any effort. And that's where you start leveraging the full platform and the capabilities of the platform. That's saying, for example, a certificate needs to be renewed. Then there is a script and an event mechanism systems for it. But also what I will show you, those platforms also can bring in policies as code, continuous compliancy, continuous validation if you are still conform the quality you measured before. And that's what we can put in place with the automation, like policies as code, and start leveraging the full platform capabilities. And as last one, we should measure and learn. And then that's definitely another very important item around DevOps practices. So let me dive into several of them. Autonomous product aligned teams. That's where you need to put in place pre-existing core teams, which can deliver from any location, optimized with the right tools, the right structure, team structure, because when you are building a Power Platform, the team structure will probably a little bit different when you are building an IoT solution. With the right skill sets, optimize for the technologies, and realize full business capability in a very proven and efficient way. And this is what product and feature teams can do. And you see a really move towards product-oriented delivery, and start putting in place teams and understand what is the customer value stream, what is the customer journey in my organization, and is there one team responsible for, or are there multiple teams responsible for? Around self-servicing platforms, you see already many popping by. For example, this is an example of Cloud Bolt, where you actually can kick off a Jenkins environment, set up a Kubernetes cluster, which then can be reused by teams. And that's also quite famous. ServiceNow, we even have systems like you can order systems, can order all kinds of stuff, and they can also provision full environments for teams to start working on. And those full environments, that's also something what we put in place, not only about one Jenkins server or one Kubernetes, but one complete CI/CD blueprint, which is set in place for teams to start working on. No discussion anymore around what kind of test tool are we going to use, what kind of test framework we're going to use, what kind of CI we're going to use. For this type of product, for this type of technology, and then think back on the core product and development and feature teams, we set up a default CI/CD pipeline up and running. And then these kinds of functionality, you cycle it back. When team wants to use something different, we will have a mechanism in place that they can contribute in an inner source way, so that the cycle goes on. This definitely drives a lot of standardization, that you have your environment, your development environment up and running really quickly. That's also, for example, what you see the cloud platforms are starting to use. AWS has, for example, already for quite a long time a service catalog, and a service catalog can be put in place to make standardizations about environments and that kind of stuff. And I also started to talk about using the platform capabilities to the max. And when you're looking at the Azure platform, for example, over here, you see that the Azure platform has policy and compliancy validations. And there you can see that your security score is 755, 500, 502 out of 720, but also that they are compliant with some regulator standards there. And that's what you can start putting in place. You even can start putting in place your own policies so that you can start measuring continuously, not batch-wise in the release pipeline, although it's automated, it's done at a certain timestamp, but continuously you can measure that into the platform. I just briefly mentioned inner source, and embracing inner source is definitely helping teams there. It helps team collaboration, help build the knowledge and sharing, and also because teams are communicating, you are improving your practices. And that's what many organizations are putting in place nowadays. And you need to have a discussion around what kind of product I'm putting in there. Now, we, for example, put that whole DevOps tool chain in there, but also infrastructure as code templates and a lot of policies as code, which teams can start using for the platforms I previously shown. And those are also the practices, how are you allowed to contribute, and what kind of tools are we using, but also around the people and the management part. That's something you need to think about. How are we engaging all those communities, and how are we controlling all the items in there? I'm skipping a few because I'm getting too late. Oh, just quickly on the everything as code. The everything as code is definitely an enabler into the cloud. And what you can do with infrastructure as code, for example, and that's an example what you see over here with infrastructure as code, you can describe how a resource in the cloud should look like. And because this is written text, and we can control it as code in a Git repo, we also can validate it if it's doing the right thing, and we start collaborating around it to start learning and how we are working together. And this is really pushing DevOps teams, enterprise DevOps team, that the infrastructure they are provisioning is always the same. And now you can think about, okay, on-prem, people did it for us. That was also the same, but that's a little bit different as this, because you want to have your DevOps teams independent, end-to-end responsible for one product. And when they are not responsible for the infrastructure, there is a dependency. And then you get finger pointed to the infrastructure people. And that's not happening when they are responsible for their own infrastructure. And that's why everything as code is such an important aspect of DevOps teams when they are starting to use cloud for their DevOps practices. How you can put this all in place is actually visualized in this small diagram. And you have, and I already showed you the AWS service catalog, but also a library like I just showed with everything as code in there on a Git repo can also be part of it. And that service catalog, number one, our teams are collaborating and starting to define the right way to do cloud infrastructures and to do setup environments. What you also see in the landing zone at the bottom at number 2, that's where a landing zone team, a platform team, starts to define how compliancy, how security and quality looks like for the organization. So when at number 3, teams are starting to deploy their applications, their systems on top of that landing zone, they know they are compliant, they know they are secured. And because they are using, number 1, the service catalog, they know that whatever they do is in the governance rules of the organization. And this is how enterprise DevOps, when organizations, where teams are starting to use cloud in the right way, looks like. A platform fully leveraged with all the policies as code and capabilities in there, controlled by a platform team to start building up more of those capabilities in there. A service catalog with standardizations, with building blocks, with easy to use components for those business projects to start using. And we do have, for example, there are organizations who put a lot of effort in the service catalog and control via security and regulations what happens in there. One more item, metrics that matter. When teams are working like this, the metrics are actually one of the most important items. And I see many teams doing an assessment at once and then don't look at it anymore, or maybe a year after. But you really should start measuring these basic metrics as teams. And doing it continuously really helps your teams to start learning from it and understand if practices are implemented in the right way. And these are the DORA metrics. I put the URL at the bottom. Those are the 4 key metrics, which are actually the standard way of measuring team quality at this moment. And one other items on metrics, GitHub just released a research paper where they are discussing space. And actually, what I really like from the paper is that they are not only measuring the hard technical metrics you find in the DORA paper, but they are also looking at happy developers write good code. So they are looking at satisfaction and well-being, collaboration and communication, and not only at the right technical levels there. And space, that's how they are mentioning this metrics framework, is really, really interesting for that. And there are some metrics what you will find in the paper. Yeah, you definitely see some velocity, story points completed, and all those kinds of metrics in there. But you also see developer satisfaction, retention, satisfaction, and all those kinds of stuff. Really interesting metrics, and I think really important nowadays, definitely when everybody's working from home and that kind of stuff. So definitely worth to start looking at this URL I put at the bottom in there. It's quite recent, it's in early March, this paper was released. To complement my story, the Enterprise DevOps report, how teams are doing DevOps, digital transformation, how they are supporting that so that organizations are overcoming those challenges. And these are 7 practices teams are adopting to be successful there, and they are adopting the cloud fully for it. And definitely quality is one item of it, of the challenges, but also quality campaigns can start to be used definitely to improve over here. What you will find in the paper, from every challenge, I've got an example of security over here, an introduction, what is the challenge, how organizations which are successful addressing it, what are theirs, how they are doing it, and a small case study. You can download the report at sogeti.com/DevOps2020, and I'm happy to answer any questions which are there. I don't see anyone in the chat, but feel free to unmute yourself and download the paper otherwise.
Thank you very much, Clemens, for the presentation. As he said, now you have the option to ask your questions doing the with the question function in the question box, or unmute, and then we can talk directly. Before we get to the question, I will give you some information about our organization. We are glad to see that so many people are interested in our events, days and nights, and also the Net Week. And since 25 years, we are bringing experts of software testing, software quality, and related topics together. And today we have grown and have around 1,300 members in the German-speaking countries. We are thankful that so many people like to work together with us in our special interest groups, like the Fach- and Arbeitsgruppen, we call it. And everyone who likes to join these activities are welcome. We would be more than happy to have you as a member. And you can get access as a member to all recorded events and also content. If you join us now, you will get a reduced membership fee for 2021. And if you like to more about us or the 21st birthday of ASQF, please visit our website at asqf.de. So, and now we come to the question, and I see one is popping in. What are the recommendations to get ops and devs work together and overcome their conflicting goals?
So it's always a tricky question, huh? Because indeed there are conflicting goals, and to mention the conflicting goals, it's one, the operational guys want to run a stable system which doesn't change, and the development guys, and maybe better the business, wants to move fast and implement new capabilities in a really fast way. What I start doing already several years back is at first they need to be in the same room. They need to use the same tools and have the same meetings because they need to start understand each other. It is sometimes you hear specialists say, hey, you need to automate all the operational work away, and then having you don't need them anymore. But that's not the case actually. And the operational guys, there is a certain mindset there which many developers are missing, and that's the same with the quality. You don't need to remove testing or testers from your teams because it has a complete different mindset as developers have, and developers are definitely much more opportunistic. When I have a discussion with teams and asking, for example, about a certain feature, how to implement it, developers are immediately saying, okay, I will have that finished in the beginning of the day. Then when you have a tester next to you or someone with a test gene in there, he will say, hey, have you thought about this? And what about this scenario? What about this scenario? What about this scenario? What about this scenario? So instead of one day, it will end up implementing in 1 week. And then the operational guys who are sitting next to that, he will start saying, okay, but to run this in production, we need to secure our database first, then we need to upgrade that. There needs to be a firewall open. We need to open up that a little bit first and doing that. And then the feature will take not 1 day, not 1 week, but probably 2 weeks. And that's actually the discussion what you need to have within your teams. Because developers are opportunistic, they are missing that knowledge actually what the operational guys and the testing guys are doing there. So my advice would be start with putting them in the same room and having them at one discussion around features and capabilities of the system and how to run this in production and to make sure everything runs in the proper way. I would start with that, and then you can start looking at, hey, we are always doing this the same way. Shall we start automating it? or you are making always this mistake. For example, always the wrong firewall is open. Should we start automating that? And hey, we can do that during our deployment in production, because I see you are using scripts there. When we have it validated by our test guy, girl, we can automate it and make it more easy. So it's always a sliding scale to massage that collaboration in there. And the ultimate goal should be always, we should automate everything what we're doing. I always say we are in this business. We should have one goal, is automate ourselves away. And then we are successful as an industry. We will never reach that level, I think, but that should be a very nice accomplishment there. Huh? You can say, hey, we freed up a lot of our time. We can focus more on business functionality now. And the practices I showed are just a few of them. And you already can start doing this. For example, the inner source infrastructure as code I showed helps already when the discussion with operational teams who are saying, I will provision this machine for you because you can't do it. Then you can go to that guy or girl and say, hey, we have this automation script. Maybe you can use this because then it's always done in the same way and we can use it more easily. And then when he does that, you show it him how it works. You can say, okay, hey, we can also do that just before we are deploying the application. So you don't have to do anything anymore. Or when you want to have an approval, we also can put that in the release pipeline. So gradually grow the collaboration and take care that the developers are not missing the quality and the operational mindset there, because that's what I sometimes see systems who are running in production which are kind of scary. That's and so that's definitely an important one. Hopefully that answered your question.
It seems like. Thank you for the inspirational answer. Okay, some other questions. Seems like everybody's happy.
Cool.
Good. Then thank you very much again, Clemens, for the very nice presentation you did today. And for all the others, feel free and register for the other nice talks we will have during this week. And there's one question coming up. What about the slides? Do you like to give the handout?
Yeah, I'm happy to share them.
Okay, good.
But I think the most valuable part is the report. And the good news is I'm writing at this moment a new report. We will launch it half of May. It's around DevSecOps. So how to put security into DevOps can be also interesting for the audience.
Okay, that sounds great. Good.
Cool.
Thank you very much again, and thank everybody else who was joining us. Have a nice evening. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.